Threlkaz was already at the center of the circle when I stepped onto the sand, turning slow for the gallery with his forelimbs spread, reciting numbers the way other men recite weather. 206 duels. 206 concessions signed under his mark. He'd been doing this since before the mining concern hired me, since before the seam of red iron ore under Calder's reach turned 2 settlements into 100 years of grinding border disputes nobody wanted to finish with a war. I signed the registry, handed the stylus back to the arbiter, a narrow gray Vrethian in administrative blue who didn't look up from her ledger. Human representative, she said, like she was confirming a typo. Noted. The circle of adjudication sat in the belly of a neutral trade station, a sand ring 40 meters across under a dome of recycled starlight, built so 2 species could settle a dispute with single combat instead of a fleet. Old law, older than the station. Nobody had updated it because nobody had ever needed to argue with the part where it worked. The seam had gone to the circle twice before mine. Both times the concern sent engineers, men who knew the rock and nothing else, and both times Threlkaz had ended it inside a minute, careful enough not to kill either of them, because a corpse made paperwork nobody at corporate wanted to read. After the second loss, the board stopped sending engineers and started looking for someone the insurance underwriters would actually sign off on. I was the only name on that list who'd said yes, without asking what the odds board currently read. A glass panel above the gallery carried those odds now, scrolling in 3 alien scripts and 1 human one out of courtesy. Threlkaz, even money against the field, 201 to 1 against me specifically. Somewhere up there a Vrethian clerk was about to have an interesting afternoon. Threl finished his lap and found me. 2 meters at the shoulder, blue-chitinous, 4 jointed limbs folded into a fighting stance that looked rehearsed for an audience, plates clicking together when he breathed. His eyes, 6 of them, faceted, the color of wet slate, fixed on me and didn't move. They sent a small one, he said, to the gallery more than to me. Good, brief is better for everyone. I didn't answer. I was watching how he set his weight, which leg he favored, the half-second hitch before each gesture where the showmanship outran the body underneath it. He'd built 206 wins on choreography. I filed that and said nothing, because nothing needed saying yet. The arbiter called the terms. Concession of the seam, full mineral rights, binding for 90 years, settled by the circle's law, first incapacitation, first concession, or first death. Threlkaz had never let it go to the third option. He didn't need to. Opponents stopped fighting once they understood the gap between his record and theirs. He opened with a strike meant to be seen, forelimbs sweeping wide, plates flaring, a sound like a door slamming that the whole gallery felt in their chests. It would have taken a slower man's head off. I read it off the hip rotation before his arm finished cocking, and was already half a step outside its arc when it landed on sand instead of me. A murmur went through the gallery, not loud, the kind of quiet that changes the weight of a room. Behind me, Brackett's hand closed on the rail hard enough that I heard the metal complain. He'd watched this exact opening twice before, from the other side of 2 losing contracts, and both times it had ended the same way inside the first 10 seconds. It didn't end that way this time, and the silence that followed it was a different texture than the one he knew. Threl recovered fast. He was good, genuinely good, the kind of good that wins 200 duels against species that fight the way he expects them to. He came again, low this time, a sweep meant to take my legs, and I stepped through it instead of away from it inside his reach, where the showmanship had no room to work. He registered that a half-second before his body did. I watched the certainty go out of his eyes first, the way water leaves a cracked cup, not all at once, just steadily, with nothing he could do to stop it. He reset his stance differently after that, narrower, lower, both forelimbs drawn back along his sides instead of out where the gallery could admire them. Somewhere behind me, a Tessari voice murmured a word I didn't know yet and wouldn't need to. The severing spiral, his signature, the one that had closed 19 of his 206 duels with the other party not getting up at all. The odds clerk's panel flickered and went still, like even the glass had decided to stop guessing. 206, I said, not loud, flat, the way you'd read a gauge. How many of them actually tested you? He didn't answer. He came a third time faster, no flourish left in it, and that was the mistake. The flourish had been keeping him honest, forcing him to telegraph. Without it, he was just fast, and fast had never been the problem I had. I took the strike on a forearm I'd long since stopped being precious about, redirected the energy of it through his own elbow, and put him down on the sand with his arm bent a direction it hadn't been built to bend. Not broken. Close enough that he understood the difference would have been a choice, not an accident. The circle went silent the way rooms do, when 206 duels worth of certainty stops being true in the space of about 4 seconds. I stood over him long enough for the arbiter to call it, then stepped back and let the medics in. Threlkaz lay there working his jaw, looking for the next number to recite and not finding one. Concession, the arbiter said, and her stylus moved like she was relieved to have something simple to write down for once. Full mineral rights, Calder's Reach seam, binding 90 years, registered to the mining concern of record. I picked the stylus back up and signed under hers, because somebody had to, and walked off the sand while the gallery was still deciding whether to applaud or just sit there. The concern's overseer met me at the rail, a heavy-set man named Brackett who'd spent the last 2 settlements explaining to a board why their hired men kept coming back without the seam. He didn't say anything either. He just looked at the odds panel, still frozen on 201 to 1, and then at me, and shook his head slowly, the way you do at a number that stopped meaning anything useful. A Tessari elder caught me at the gate, not Threll's handler, an older one, ceremonial markings worn faint into his chitin, the kind who'd watched enough circles to know what he was looking at when it walked past him. He studied me the way you'd study a structural report that didn't match the building it described. He has won 206 times, the elder said. I believe you. You weren't, he stopped, recalibrated, tried again. You weren't afraid. No. He waited for the rest of it, the way people do when they expect an explanation will arrive to make the gap make sense. I didn't have one to give him that would have helped. He'd want a reason that fit inside the circle's logic, a hidden technique, a longer training record, something that slotted into the column he already had open in his head. There wasn't one. Threll had announced every move 206 times before he made it, against opponents who fought the way he expected them to. I just hadn't been one of those. Behind the elder, the odds clerk was already amending the panel, hand-keying a notation the system had no field for. The elder followed my eyes to it, read what she'd typed, and didn't say anything else. I thought about that on the walk back to the shuttle bay, past officials still arguing in low voices about whether the circle's record books needed a new column for outcomes like this one. Afraid of what, exactly? The only thing that had ever actually been in question was whether anyone standing in that ring had been paying attention. I signed off on the concession paperwork that night, ate a ration bar standing up because the mess hall had already closed, and filed the report the way the company wanted it. Routine settlement, circle of adjudication, no injuries requiring station medical beyond field stabilization for the opposing party. True enough. There was no box on the form for what it costs a species to learn, in under 5 minutes, that the thing it had built 206 wins of confidence on was never the part that mattered.